Let's turn to January 6th. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what drove that mob to violently attack the U.S. Capitol on that day. I mean, thousands of Donald Trump supporters, many of them armed, showed up in D.C. to protest after Trump told them to, quote, be there, be wild. We remember that tweet. They marched to the Capitol from a rally where Donald Trump announced, we're going to the Capitol. They wore MAGA hats. They waved Trump flags. They chanted, fight for Trump. They weren't trying to hide the fact that they saw themselves as acting on behalf of Donald Trump. They were openly flaunting it. And now we have hard numbers to back up that fact on their motivations, thanks to a new Harvard study that was shared exclusively with NBC News ahead of its release. The study uses court documents to analyze the motivations of 417 rioters. And researchers found that, quote, far and away, the most commonly cited reasons for breaching the United States Capitol were a desire to support Trump and concerns about election integrity. As one defendant told the FBI, quote, Trump called us to D.C. And joining me now, NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins. He's also one of the authors of this story on the Harvard study. So, Ben, what does this study add to our understanding of what happened on January 6th at the insurrection and the motivations of those rioters?
Yeah, Zerlina, I think most of us are like, of course, Donald Trump sent those people to the Capitol. We all know this. But if you're the DOJ or if you're somebody about to charge somebody high up in this conspiracy to, foment a coup, then you need somebody else to say it like this. You need hard data. You need facts like this. And that's what this Harvard study does. It looks into 417 different people, 470 different charging documents from the U.S. District Court in D.C. And it shows very clearly that the top two reasons are Donald Trump told me expressly to be there, or Donald Trump's big lie forced me to be here. The third thing that was listed was secession or civil war. That was much further down. But, at the end of the day, the idea that these were peaceful protesters, that these were people doing a random tourist visit, which was a talking point on the right, which remains a talking point on the right, that is just factually, now we can say, objectively incorrect.
So Trump summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack. That's the Liz Cheney quote that she keeps going back to. And you're saying that this Harvard study backs that point up. But do you think that they understood that they would be breaking the law, in listening to the direction of Donald Trump? Did they see breaking into the Capitol, breaching the Capitol as something criminal? Or did they think they had permission because the president told them to do it?
Yeah, a lot of these people thought they were breaking the law. In fact, just as many people were there for peaceful protest, in quotes, as were there for a general interest in committing violence. That is a hard number that is in this study. So people were there knowing that they were not there to, perform any sort of protest that was legal in any real way. People knew that they were breaking the law. People knew that they were there to either overthrow the government, start a revolution, begin secession in some cases. But in general, they were there to not just break the law, but do treasonous acts in general.
Was there anything else in the study that stood out to you? Is there anything surprising that we wouldn't have assumed about these folks?
Yeah, an interesting thing was about 4% of people said they were just there because of QAnon, not because of anything else. But they were told, by Q that this was the day it was all going to happen, that, that Hillary Clinton was going to be hanged and all that stuff. 4% of 417 people is a lot of people. So it shows you the grip of that cult that was going on. And it really does show you that, 7% of people being there peacefully is very, very small number. If 93% of people were there for reasons other than peaceful protest, then that's not a protest. That's a coup attempt.
This data actually really does go a long way in helping us have a better understanding of what happened and what their motivations were. Ben Collins, thank you for being here. Really important study, and thank you for this reporting. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.